Good morning. Let's grab some coffee this morning. Good morning, everyone. Hi, it's Stacy with Walking in My Shoes, and we are loving my veteran this morning. Let me get a little coffee in, get people a chance because I'm 2 minutes late, which isn't horrible, I don't guess. So I want to say good morning. Everybody, get your coffee, and we're going to talk about collateral damage today. So I hope everyone had a good day yesterday. The moon cycle and everything else that was going on just made us have an interesting day around here. Let's just say that. And we're going to keep moving forward. So grab your coffee and let's get our day started. Oh my gosh. Best part of waking up. I'm telling you. So I did a thing last night and I posted it and it's on collateral damage. And you know, everybody's eyes, again, good morning, Pamela, are so focused on the world and the world's events um, that we, as the spouses and family of veterans, especially those with PTSD and TBIs, already feel like we're forgotten. We don't have a lot of resources. We don't have a lot of help in navigating through this. We don't have a really strong support structures other than groups like these. We're the abandoned ones. I mean, we kind of fall through the cracks. We're also super tough and super strong, so I'm just going to put that out there. But we become the collateral damage in this. um, I heard a speech early on by the president, and he said, I know how the veterans feel. Do not, do not dare tell me that you know how I feel because you don't. You don't know how my veteran feels. You don't know how I feel. I don't want anybody saying that is not experiencing this to tell me that they know how I feel because they don't have a clue how I feel. They don't understand for 1 minute what it is like to live in our home. They don't understand what it is like to live with our veterans. I guess they think they're disposable, and we've had this conversation before. But when you're going to stand there on a public platform and say, I understand how our veterans feel. No, you don't understand how our veterans feel. I live with mine. I barely understand how he feels between the shutting down and the pushing away sometimes with all that's going on and the distancing and the trying to put the puzzle pieces together in the right puzzle. I barely understand that. So I really don't think you understand that at all. And you darn sure don't understand my life. You don't understand what you are putting us through. Because first of all, you know, we've all said this, there's not a lot of resources out there for us, so you don't already understand what we're going through. And now you've added this and you're not thinking about the stress and the anxiety that it has caused every single veteran family member as well. So we look at the news, whether you want to look at it or not, it comes into your home and into your life. It does. You can't stop it. It's there. We hear bits, pieces, news clips, sounds clips. We see it on social media, TikTok, and unless you live under a rock completely, you know there is stuff going on. So we know that our veterans hear it. We know that we see it. So now here we are. We already, most of us, or a lot of us, used to, still do at times, walk on eggshells when it comes to our veterans because we don't want to trigger them, right? I mean, nobody in their right mind wants to create a triggered event. So we don't want to trigger them. And we're already looking for that. And somebody asked me yesterday, how do you go out in public with them? And get away from them having outbursts and exploding and whatever. And I'm like, look, the more you know and you understand about PTSD, the better off it's going to be because you know, like I pick out the seats we're going to sit at in the restaurant, and the table we're going to sit at, and if we're a group of people, I kind of dictate where we're going to sit, just like kind of bully my way in without making it a big deal. We have a very specific routine when it comes to going places that we list where we're going. So if if we all know kind of what's going on, and so he knows exactly where we're going, so his mindset gets straight and all of this goes on, and this is how we deal with it without him exploding in public. So we do as spouses and family members, we do have a situational awareness of what is going on with our specific veteran and how things work in their brain and how do we mitigate some of the situations. I mean, it isn't like they intentionally say, hey, I'm going to go to town and be a jerk. That's not what happens, but we learn to mitigate those situations. Biggest fight, one of the biggest fights Carl and I ever got in was at an Arby's because I was going to dine in and he realized that all the walls were glass and there was no place for him to sit, and I didn't pick up on that, and it was a massive blow up in the middle of Arby's. Okay, so let me just tell you, it was horrible. So we become aware of these things. We become aware of what is good for us and what is not good for us when it comes to going places and being with them. And so now we've got all of that going on. So right, we've already kind of learned to navigate through that part. And then you add this nonsense into the mix. And some of our veterans share a lot about what they did, and some of our veterans don't share anything about what they did. And I don't know about the rest of you, but my veteran is like famous for throwing me a puzzle piece, and it must be like either a puzzle piece that the whole puzzle is one color, or it's a kaleidoscope of colors, and he'll throw this puzzle piece and I'm supposed to put it all together. But what he fails to tell me is there's like 15 different puzzles he's working out of, right? So all the puzzles are the same color, and there's like 15 different puzzles that he's working out of. And so it becomes this disaster, and I'm supposed to put all the pieces together. Well, now you've added the rest of the world into it. Well, nobody understands that this is what we're living with every single day. And we have our own anxieties. We have our own fears. As Americans, like every other American, we have our fears. We see what's going on. We question what's going on. I look at what's going on in Afghanistan, and while I don't understand all the politics behind it, I mean, I understand a lot, and I understand the terrorists, and I understand that the Taliban and ISIS and all these people can be there, and that does concern me. What concerns me more is that we have 5,000 troops sitting in an airport in the middle of a very big city with a little bit of razor wire around them, and we have just become a target, just all of our guys sitting there. That to me is insane. And so that plays on my mind. So that's already stressing me out. I know I talked to y'all about 9/11 is a trigger for me personally. The 20th anniversary is coming up. So now I've added this to the mix. So when you start to add all these little pieces up, nobody is there to say, hey, this is how you get through it. Nobody is there to say this is how we're going to deal with it. Nobody is there to say this is what's going on. We know for a fact, this is not a made up number, that at a minimum, hospitals and VAs are seeing approximately a 25% increase in the veteran population seeking mental health services since the pullout of the troops started in Afghanistan. Okay, so we know that's already happening. Now, here we are. Here we are. We know there's increased risk for mental health issues going on and feeling certain ways. We know there's an increased risk for suicide. We know all that. So now we have this added pressure. How are we supposed to deal with this added pressure? We already have our own pressure going on, our own situations going on, our own things going on in our head, our own gut feelings about how we feel about this. We already have all of this going on in our lives that we are already dealing with. And on top of that, our personal stuff that's going on. I know Sarah Kim's on here and they're getting ready to try to sell their house. So in the middle of this, she's got her veteran, right? That has PTSD and TBI. She's working on that relationship and how she's learning to deal with advance of triggers and communications and how to better get their life. Then there's stress because, any change makes things stressful. So they're selling their house. So now their veteran has strangers coming into their home. Sarah Kim's trying to keep the house clean with a 4-year-old. Okay, so she has all this going on, and then you have the world events that have dumped on top of this, and their anxiety goes up, and then people are like, oh, well, who thought about us? Nobody thought about us. Nobody thinks about us. Nobody thinks about all the stuff that we go through. Nobody thinks about all of this stuff that we're having dumped in our lap to deal with too. So how do you get through it now? What do? We are the collateral damage. We are the collateral damage. Right. And Sarah Brooks made a very valid point. Mom was agitated last night and kept talking about them, military and veterans, and us, civilians, and how we don't understand, and we don't. That's a fact you have to accept. We do not understand. We do not, cannot, will not ever understand. You know, I talk a lot to, I was a paramedic, and I've seen gory, gross things in my EMS career, and I talk to combat medics. And the thing is that, you know, we have seen gory, gross things, but they're both on different scales. They're both on very different scales and very different levels, and we've both seen them, but it doesn't make what we've seen the same. It makes them different. So no, they don't know what I feel like. I don't know what they feel like. And so it is a very different feeling. And while we may have had the same title, the same job description per se, we didn't do the same thing. And I do not understand where they've been, and they do not understand where I've been. We have some commonalities, but they're not the same. And the same thing happens in that situation. So now here we are, again, the collateral damage, as I call us, the collateral damage. We don't understand their mindset completely. We've never been in their situation. We're asked to deal with that. We're asked to deal with all the stuff that's going on. We have our own set. We don't really want to talk about how we feel personally, because when we talk about how we feel personally, we're afraid we're going to trigger them. And then however I feel personally just doesn't measure up to how he has to feel personally, right? Because he's been in a different thing. Okay. It is very nice. Sarah Kim has Pamela has a great suggestion for you on the thing. It's just hard. And we are fixers. We are helpers. We've encouraged each other for for a year now. I've encouraged you, stand beside them. Yes, you can't be them, but be there for them. You don't understand, be there for them. Let them know that you are here for them. And when you're in two different mindsets, it is very hard, because we want to show them, hey, we're here for you, and no matter what we do, we are really not there for them. In this situation, we are not there for them. I can be present in his space. I can tell him I'm there for him. I can even listen to him. I can empathize with him, but I have not a clue what it's like to be him. So, and it makes it very hard for us to talk about things that frustrate or bother us. And we all have our own sets. And I'll give you three prime examples, and they're all very different. So Michelle is going to go see her daughter tomorrow night. And she's going to get on an airplane, and she is flying from Colorado to Virginia. So she has all this anxiety about flying, as a general rule, just the anxiety about flying. You know, they got the COVID restrictions, and the Delta variant's going crazy, and you have all this. And she's flying into a place that happens to be, if you had to pick the epicenter or the weakest spot in the United States, period, if you wanted to take out our military, where she's going is the weakest spot ever. It would be the place to take out, because it would leave us completely vulnerable. And so she's going there. And we talked about that this morning. So she's going there. So her anxiety's up. She's worried about her veteran being home alone while all this is going on, and how are the world events affecting him. And so she's worried about that. But she needs to go see her daughter and grandkids. And it's really important to her. And she needs it mentally. So she has this anxiety. But how does she sit back and talk to her veteran and say, hey, look, let me tell you how I feel too, because he's at a different level. He's feeling things in a different place. So she has all this anxiety on top of what's going on in the world, and she's leaving the day before the deadline. So, hello, is she going to get trapped there? I mean, the things that just go through her mind. Then we take Nakia, and Nakia has said she has switched roles, where a lot of our veterans feel like they're there to protect us, or they push us away because they have to get their mindset right. Nakia's roles are backwards. Nakia's roles are backwards all of a sudden. She's got to be the protector of Richard. Am I doing enough? Do I have stuff that if things go bad, Is he gonna be protected? Is he gonna have the proper medical stuff that he needs to in order to live? Is he gonna have this stuff? So this is the anxiety that goes on in her world. And for her, it is incredibly painful because she saw what Richard went through from Vietnam, and seeing it again is like just slapping her in the face and reminding her that Richard is the way Richard is with his health because of Vietnam. So she sees that, and of course it is a new trigger for her. So how does she deal with that? So we all have this triggers, and we all become our own sense of this collateral damage. Mine is completely different. I sit back and I have my own health things, and we're not going there because that's not as much of a trigger, but the 9/11 thing is a big deal for me. And so I have my own set of triggers. I can't go in a call and say, this is how I feel. Yeah, I can, but it is very difficult for me to say that to him. It is very difficult for him to say that to him. I remember yesterday, and you want to talk about me feeling butthurt, and that was all it was me feeling butthurt. That's become my new word, I guess, this week, is I felt totally butthurt because I had to go drop some records off at the oncologist, and we'll go the second and find out what they want to do about oncology. And it's weird because on the way home we were just talking about whatever, and I said, the one thing that scares me the most is I'm going to lose my hair, right? And Carl just looks at me and says, it's hair, it'll grow back. And I'm like, you insensitive little ass. And then I'm thinking, in the world the way it is today, I made a comment about my freaking hair falling out, right? And I'm like, okay, now what do you do? So Jason wants to know, how do you approach them that you're really trying hard to be supportive and be there for him, yet I continue to suffer? I wish there was an easy answer. I wish there was a very easy answer, but you have to be honest. You have to be honest and be there and be supportive. So approaching them is simply this. First of all, and I've done this a lot the past 3 or 4 days, and it has created like World War III. Just we're just at each other. It's not like we're explosive, but we're just at each other. When I say, you're in a place, or you look like you're in a place, or you're wound, or you're whatever that term is. Are you okay? I'm fine. No, you're not. You need to talk to me. When you do that and you make assumptions that you know what's in their head, that is a huge mistake. Huge mistake to make an assumption that you know what's in their head. Hey, babe, I saw this on the news today. I'm sure this has really upset you. Well, maybe he has, or maybe he hasn't seen it. And he's like, now I've added something else to his mix. So I don't approach him like that anymore. I just look at him and I'm like, hey, I'm not sure what's going on, but you really look like you're concentrating on something, or you have a lot on your mind. And if you want to talk about it, I'm here. So the change of the approach without telling them, you're wound, you're having a hard time, you're suffering, you're dealing with it, you're this, you're uptight. I know this has to be a trigger for you. When you use those words, you don't know that. You don't know that this has to be a trigger for them. You don't know that they happen to be upset. You don't know what's going on in their mind. So by changing your approach and saying, look, you just don't, you're off today. Something, you look different. Is there anything going on and that you want to talk about? And I'm here. And when they say, no, I'm fine, say, okay, just wanted you to know, but I'm here for you. So that is the easiest way to approach them, because we don't know what's going on. We don't know. Is it a memory of something they've seen? Is it the fear that because once they're a warfighter, they're always a warfighter? So is it the fear that they're not there? I mean, that is a huge thing. And I know for Jeremy, this has got to be super tough because Jeremy was part of the 82nd and they just flew the 82nd in, right? So it's got to be super tough for Jeremy, who helped found this group. It's got to be super tough for Jeremy because he sent a message and he says, I'm so angry right now. He sent that message out to us yesterday. And he is angry. Okay. And it's got to be super tough knowing that your guys, because there will always be his guys, that your guys are going to this situation. So that's tough. Now, when it comes to us, how do we tell them? We have to be honest. We have to be honest. Communication is key. These are our partners. They are our spouses. They are our partners. They are the people. And when we keep things about how we feel, let's take the PTSD out, because I think we all, everybody, them and us, tend to bring it in. Let's take the PTSD out. But if you had a relationship and he didn't tell you something was going on, or didn't share with you something, and we hear it all the time, well, he didn't tell me he was going to go spend money, or he didn't tell me that. Okay, but if we're doing the same thing, if we're doing the same thing by not talking about it, right, then we are no different than where we're getting mad at them. So I think it has to become this two-way street. You have to speak to them. And if something has got you overwhelmed, I talked to Carl in the kitchen the other night, and I said, I just lost it. And I said, I am just so triggered. And he's like, what's the matter? And I started to tell him. And while he listened, and he did hold me for a minute, he wasn't this I don't know, the only words I can use is love song or fairy tale, Young and the Restless, let's love you. Oh, I'm so sorry for everything you're going through. That kind of stuff. Because if you're expecting that, you might as well just expect that somewhere else. Because it doesn't happen in real life most of the time anyway. Okay, so don't set your expectations up. But the fact that they listen, that's great, and they are being supportive, and they are listening to you, and that is a win. That is a victory. Don't determine. We get so focused on determining what we think and what we expect their response to be. We do this all the time, not just over this situation. We have in our mind this predetermined response, what their response should be, okay? That when it's not, our expectations fail. And then we feel like, oh my God, but I expected this. Don't expect that. If you're doing something for an expectation of a reward or a reaction, you're wrong. If you're communicating because you're having a hard time and they listen, that and within itself is the victory. But when we set up these false expectations of what the outcome should be, then we're failing. I mean, you can even go back to like kids at Christmas, and I don't remember. Actually, it wasn't the best analogy I can give you was my ex-husband. He was a plank owner on the aircraft carrier, and through some moves and some lot of issues, his plank owner's plaque disappeared, was gone, was taken, stolen, whatever. It's his plank owner's plaque, and it's actually a piece of metal that came out of the hull, and only people who were assigned and stationed on that carrier the day it was commissioned get it. It is a very elite group of people. So I started searching, and I went everywhere, and I found his plank owner plaque, and I paid dearly to have it sent back to me. And I got his plank owner's plaque back, and I was so excited. And Christmas came, right? And he opens it and he goes, oh, my plank owner's plaque. Cool. And it's been 10 years and it's still in the box under the bed. And so I had this very specific expectation of what he was going to feel because I was so excited about it, right? And I had this expectation of how he would react. And like I had just done the greatest thing ever, that I had done the greatest thing ever. And he was like, oh, my plank owner's plaque. So I was let down and I was hurt. But I did something because I listened to what he said he needed, and I did that. But you can't come in with you can't control how people react. So if they're listening, even if they don't give you the exact answer you want, if they're listening to you, That's a victory within itself. So yes, you have to talk, because one day, and this is usually what happens in our house. So I'll talk about something, just like yesterday, the comment about my hair falling out. Okay, and I was so hurt. I was so hurt when he said it's only hair. Yeah, and I was like, but that wasn't it, and I was just hurt by his reaction, because I wanted this hug me, oh baby, it's gonna be okay, sweetie, you're gonna get through it, we're all in it together, da 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 da. And I was butthurt, like really bad. And so I came in the house and I stormed in the house, and he tried to talk to me, and I didn't want any part of it at the time because I was already angry and I was being super bitch. So the moon also has an effect on us, just so you know. I was super bitchy. And then finally, when I kind of settled down, he said something to me about it, and he said, hey, what did I tell you about your hair? I said, that it'll grow back. He says, no, what did I tell you before that? That you'd shave your head? He said, yeah. And what did Melissa tell you? That she'd shave her head too? And he said, and have we gotten to the point that that medicine's going to cause your hair to fall out? No. Then understand, when the time comes, we'll be there to support you. And I was like, damn it. Damn it. Yeah, and so we come up with these, and all it was, y'all, is I had this different expectation of what it was going to be. It didn't mean that he didn't listen to me. It didn't mean that he wasn't empathetic with me. It didn't mean that he didn't love me. What it meant was he just didn't give me the answer I had expected at the time I expected it. Y'all got to stop thinking he's a saint. He is a saint. He said, what did he tell me yesterday? He said, do you ever tell me when I do good? And I started thinking about this. And it's like, if we do something with this or with anything, he's always, I'm so proud of you, you know, you've done this or you've done that. He said, do you ever tell me that I do good? And I'm like, I say how wonderful you are all the time. He says, when? And I said, do you not listen to Walking in My Shoes? And he says, no, I quit listening to it because I take it the wrong way. And he does. It's funny because he would take Walking in My Shoes for a long time. He would listen to it, and if I said something and I didn't follow through in it, because I'm not perfect and I don't always do what I say needs to be done every day. I fail at things, and I slip backwards. He would like play it back for me and say, do you remember 3 days ago you said this? It was 26 minutes into your conversation. And like he cues it to 3 minutes and 26, 3 days ago and 26 minutes ago. Listen. And so he doesn't listen anymore. And he said, you know, you never tell me the good that I do. And so that was like an eye-opening thing. And so I can't like all of a sudden when he said that just run around and say, "Oh, but you're good at this and you're good at that. You're good," because that's lip service, right? It's not the truth. I mean, it is the truth, but it becomes lip service. I need to start doing it on a regular basis and become more aware that that's what he said he needed. And that's what I'm telling you in how in JC how to kind of approach them and how to talk to them. You have to listen on both sides, and we fail to do that a lot. We fail to do that a lot. So I just want you guys to know we are the collateral damage. We are the ones who have to step up to the plate. We are the ones without the support structures in place from whomever, the powers that be. But you guys are the background. You are the backbone. You are the people who do this. And Sarah Kim, yes, it does work both ways. But I will tell you this from experience. When we start doing it, and we may have to do it more and longer in the beginning, we may have to do it more and longer in the beginning, but when we do it and they realize that it is not lip service anymore and that it is for real, they will start to make that turn. Ask Nakia, and she's on here, how long did it take Richard to say thank you? And she says those are the best words he's ever said. But how long did it take Richard to say thank you? And and it came from her doing it over and over and over and over again to do that. We can't assume from them and realize they can't assume they know what I'm thinking. Right, you have to, nobody can read minds. But Stephanie is right. You have to be the change we want to see. Okay, whether they do it or not. Because one, it makes us the person we want to become. That's the biggest thing. When we make the changes, people talk about setting boundaries, and boundaries are not rules. Okay, so let me explain this. Boundaries are, and we're gonna get like over again, but boundaries are not a list of rules. Boundaries are a thing that protect you and keep you being the person you want to be. So when we feel down and we feel deflected and we feel defeated, that's because our boundaries aren't in place. And I'm not just talking about boundaries with our veterans, because people get this mindset, oh, I got to set boundaries with my veteran. No, you got to set boundaries with the rest of the world. Not just with your veteran. You got to set boundaries with the rest of the world. But more importantly, you got to set boundaries for you. That's the hardest set of boundaries to set, are the boundaries that you have to set for you, because they're not about anybody else. They are about you. So you've got to decide what in your life is important that you protect about who you are, and not let people of any person, whether it's your veteran, whether it is your neighbor, whether it is your children, whether it is your boss, whether it is your friend, you can't let them keep coming in and screwing up your boundary. Okay, so that is a very insightful thing, and you've got to be the change that we want to see, whether they do it or not. Because I'm telling you, our veterans are way more observant than you know, and when they see that it is not lip service, and they see that it is a change, I assure you, they come back and they say, wow, I didn't realize I was doing this until you started doing this. And you're going to find that your positive changes, even though they came out the other way, it's going to work. It's going to work. It will work. Nakia, you are going to protect him. You've protected him all this time. You've protected him all this time. And you're going to protect him. And if you can't, we bring in a whole army of people that will help you protect him. You are not, nobody is alone in this journey. I think that's the other thing we have to understand, is why the government and the programs and all this stuff may think that we are just collateral damage. We are only going to be collateral damage if we allow it to happen. We have to come together and lift each other up and say, we got this, y'all. We got this. We've got this. Yes, you're afraid, Nakia. We're all terrified. But you're going to protect Richard, because that's what you do. And that's what you've done. And you do it by second nature. And you don't realize how much you protect him. And I go back, and I know this breaks your heart, but I go back to those winter storms. And there was another veteran very similar to Richard who froze to death in Texas. They found him in his truck trying to get his oxygen concentrator to plug in his truck, where he froze to death. Richard didn't. You protected him. So don't you ever, you are so much stronger than what you think. And you are going to protect him always. I promise you. And Melissa, you're right. We are so much stronger together. We learn that we can uplift each other and we can get through it. And how many times y'all become the voice in my head who say, Stacy, you're an idiot. You're really saying the wrong things here. Stacy, you're an idiot. And like when I try to be super strong, I'm like, I don't know when Carl feels this way about me, when especially when I'm sick and da 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 da. And Nakia says to me, I see things from Carl's side. And that's not what I want to hear. Do you really think I want to hear that I'm doing something wrong? But she calls me out and says, hey, you're screwing this one up, sister. You're doing it wrong. I see it from his side. I've been there. And so, but that's what we do. It's not always about, we're not always the cheerleaders to each other. Sometimes we're the people who say, hey, you need to get over it. You know, we've given you tools, but you keep wanting to throw PTSD back as the excuse, and that's not it at all. And that, anyway, I could talk forever, so I probably need to stop talking forever because I have a whole lot to do. We have boot camp coming up, so I do have a lot to do. Um, it is a very different season right now. Daisy, it is such a different it is such a different season right now. And you're not alone in this journey. It is a tough journey. Yeah, girl, I love it when you call me out too. So it's one of those things. We kind of get a we. It's not like calling you out. It's more about accountability. It's more about accountability. It's more about, hey, come on, y'all, wake up, smell the coffee. It's more about accountability. And you know, and I'm going to go back to this one more thing before we get off of here, but I'm going to get back to this. You know, October, and anybody who wants to come can join us, please do. First week of October, we're all headed to Texas. And we're going to see Nakia and my Richard, as she affectionately calls him. And I promise you, for that week, he's going to be my Richard too, and he's going to be Melissa's Richard, and he's going to be Stephanie's Richard. Okay, okay. Um, yeah, you have to let Richard know some of what's going on in this world, because then he can understand my anxiety of fear and his protection. You're right, and we've had you and Nikki and I've had this conversation. So what amazes me about all these people who are going to Texas, and I just think it's so amazing, is you sit here and you look at our veterans triggers, right? What is our trigger? What is their trigger? What is their trigger? So Melissa had to drive Nick to like 4 hours away for some blood test, right? And he's like, we know it's going to be a trigger. We know it's going to be this. We know it's going to be that. When the conversation came up to drive 20 some hours from Connecticut to Texas, Nick says, let's go. And there was not one thought of the PTSD, because we tend to say, well, Melissa, are you and Nick going to be able to come because of his PTSD? And it's like, oh, you know, we'll figure it out or whatever. That wasn't even an option. Nick said, let's go. I'll figure it out. And it was like, so that's why I'm saying that a lot of times we use PTSD as an excuse when it doesn't need to be there, and that's calling each other out for accountability. So anyway, I just kind of rambled on about that little piece right there because it was just my little moment of cheerleading moment that I just had to put that aha moment out there. So anyway, I'm going to get off of here, but I do have to say one more time, I am so excited about the first week in October. And anybody in this family who wants to go, we need all the help we can get. We really cannot wait to meet everybody. First week of October, the 2nd through the 9th, we are going to be in Wichita Falls, Texas, seeing our Nakia and my Richard. You're going to have to share him that week, Nakia. I'm just saying. We're going to be there seeing them that week, and all of our veteran family, and we have just become so close. To see each other in person is going to be amazing. So anyway, I'm getting off of here, y'all. We are the collateral damage, but we don't have to be. We come together, we join together, we fight those battles together, we call each other out, we lift each other up, we support each other, and we will get through these times. We will get through these times. Don't set an expectation. Oh, well, we're going to get through it. It's going to be just like this. It may not be what you see down the road as that expectation, but we will get through them. I promise you. So I'm Stacy. This has been Walking in My Shoes. We are loving my veteran. Y'all have a blessed day. Bye.